Hello, everybody. How are you guys? We're back with another Lyrics Explained. This time it's going to be a great song. It's Metallica's Master of Puppets. I'm going to use my 12 years in the University of North Dakota's Lyrics Appreciation Program to explain what these lyrics are all about, and hopefully that'll help you enjoy this song even more, this iconic song by an iconic band. Now, Master of Puppets is really a story, and it's the story that centers on James Allen Hetfield and his days in the town of Downey, California. Now, if you've ever been to the LA area, there is just a huge glob of towns that used to be separated by countryside and suburbs, much maybe the same as your town, where there's actually space between population centers. That is no longer the case in Southern California. It's a huge glob of cityscape. And you can verify this for yourself if you fly into the city at night from points east into LAX, which is on the ocean. So that means you'll fly over the entire Southern California area and look out the window. You'll just see a constant sea of lights with very little space in between, very little parkland or anything. It's just a huge megalopolis. And so Downey is a suburb of Los Angeles, but let's be honest, there are very few suburbs of LA that aren't actually LA. And so think about that when you think about James Allen Hetfield, who grew up in Downey. And in the early days of his guitar career, now remember, he has been named in many polls as one of the top 10 or 15 guitarists in history. So he started developing his skills at a young age, but how do you pay for the lessons? How do you pay for equipment? How do you pay for all this stuff when you're a young kid? And what he did was he had his own puppet show, and he would perform at the Downey Mall. And whether it was outside the Spencer Gifts or the Cheesecake Factory or even the Macy's, he was earning money by running what he called James Allen's Marionette Puppet Theater. So he didn't use Hetfield because James Allen's just seems smoother and quicker. Okay? He might also have been protecting the name because he wanted to be able to use that as his show business name. Okay? Well, we don't really know. But Master of Puppets, the lyrics talk about those days when he was literally doing a puppet show for money. And they passed the hat, and the guy was good. Now, why was he so good at a marionette show? Finger dexterity. It's the same reason he's such a brilliant guitarist. If you think it's easy to run a marionette show for 8 and 7-year-olds at the Downey Mall for hours on end without having some finger dexterity, then you have a screw loose. Now, the other advantage that he had other puppet masters was that he was tall. James Allen Hetfield, is 6'1", so he had the height that really helps when you're getting above the stage and you're working the puppets. And this guy also had the stage presence that you see when you go to a Metallica show. He was developing, of course, he was a young guy. We're all kind of awkward at that stage. He was still developing his personality and stuff. But he did have the ability to do voices and to build a story with the marionettes, with the puppets. And of course, his parents were very supportive in this because one, he was using his natural skills, B, he loved it, and C, he was bringing in cash to help pay for his guitar lessons, for guitars, for amps, okay, for the electric bill for the amps. Can you imagine what the electric bill was in the Hetfield household? The Hetfield household, okay, when he's practicing his guitar for hours on end. The guitar bill, the electricity bill for the guitar had to be $3,000 or $4,000 a month. And so the marionette show helped pay for that guitar, for that electric bill, and for those guitar lessons and the guitars themselves. So when you look at these lyrics, that gives you the context of what we're talking about. That's why he says right in the lyrics, okay, Master of Puppets, I'm pulling your strings. Okay, so he is the master of the show, as he then became later one of the masters of success in the Metallica universe, because he has that stage presence, that personality, backed up by years of practice and skill. Okay, twisting your mind. So he's using the puppets, all right, to build a story that alters your mind and gets you engaged in the show to the point where you're 7, 8 years old and you're pulling on your dad's arm or hand or wrist, or your mom, or saying, hey, throw some money in the pot, throw some money in the hat for this guy, he's good. And the parents, of course, are loving it, because not only was there an engaging story in the puppet show, but he also had jokes. So it worked much like a Disney film does today, in that it had the, you might call it the slapstickness of the puppets hitting each other or doing whatever they were doing, the conflict of the story, but they were also telling jokes that worked at an adult level. And that's exactly the key to a success of a Disney movie. It appeals to the kids, but the language and the jokes appeal to the adults. And Hetfield had that early on, guys, and that again shows you the trajectory he was on as he developed his skills and developed his guitar ability later on. So, guys, I hope that helps understand what this is all about. So when he says, I'm what is causing your self-destruction, he's talking about, because the marionettes are in a passion play, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's a love story, but it is a conflict between two powerful marionettes in the show, okay? And one has this goal and the other has another goal. Maybe it's a father and a son. Okay, the father wants the son to join the company, to become a shoemaker like the father. The son wants to light out on his own and become a traveling musician. Well, the father thinks this is the complete waste of his life. So there's a conflict, because the son is still living at home, and in this story, he may just actually leave home at a very young age in order to become the traveling musician. So that storyline just shows the conflict of dominant personalities, and that's what he's talking about in the lyrics when he says that it can be the center of self-destruction. Because in a loving family, you need each other, not only for survival, but for emotional support. And when there's a conflict and somebody leaves, it could become a source of destruction, and develops mental challenges, emotional challenges, like when he says that your arteries and your heart can pump with fear, okay, as part of our tribal connection to each other that is missing once that conflict is unresolved. Now, later in the story, the resolution comes, and then things become better. But it's that ability to tell a story, storylines and story ideas that go back to the beginning of when we sat around campfires telling stories to each other. Well, Hetfield had that ability and communicated it in his marionette show in the Downey Mall, whether, again, it could be outside the Spencer Gifts, it could be outside the Cinnabon, all right? It could be outside the Orange Julius, and if you don't know what that is, then you're young, because that was the thing back in the day. All right, the Orange Julius, or just the movie theaters. When the people came out of the theaters, he'd hit them with a show. Could be the matinee on Saturday, get the kids, get the parents. The guy was on his game at a young age. I hope that helps. Guys, come on back. We have so many more videos to talk about, so many things going on in the channel. Drop a like, drop a subscription, drop on by and have some coffee. I don't care. Come on back.